שבוע טוב, שלום עליכם. בכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים, עת ללדת ועת למות, עת לטעת ועת לקור נטוע. Shlomo HaMelech includes his list in Kohelet, עת מלחמה ועת shalom. Now, it's clearly in עת מלחמה. And in the Milchama, everything's different. Eino domeh halicha b'milchama, halicha eit shalom. You can't compare walking in a time of war to walking at a time of peace. You can't compare sleeping or lack thereof at a time of milchama to sleeping at a time of peace. And eating b'eit milchama and eating of eit shalom. The question is, how is that nogeh aleinu? What's the relevance to us, to each and every Jew, wherever he might be in the world? For chayalim it's obvious. Eit milchama is milchama. Shuto kamashmo is to go into fights. But what about other Jews? What about those that aren't taking active part in the fighting itself? I'd like to share with you two nikudot. The first nikudah is what we call lizdahot, to identify. To be able to identify with everything that's going on here, with the war, what's going on with the soldiers, what's going on with the civilians. Naturally, it's not easier for those of us, Yeshivat, those that are here in Eretz Yisrael, that are living through the Tsar, Habaylan, and all that's going on. Those Jews that are not in Eretz Yisrael, that are in Chutz La'aretz, naturally it's more difficult. It's clear that every Jew, his head tells him that he needs to be connected, that he wants to feel connected to what's going on. But it's also clear that it's easier said than done, and it's a very difficult thing to do. Kal v'chomer, for those that are now in camps, in the summer vacation, the holiday, all the more so it makes it difficult, naturally, as much as they'd like to really feel connected and identify with what's going on here in Eretz Yisrael. I'd like to briefly describe to you what's been going on here for the last couple of days, the last week or so. Maybe I'll begin with a question that I received in Mamish for Makabel Shabbos, for candlelighting, from Chayal, freshly married. A chassan was married, his chuppah was 2 weeks ago. And his mempeh, his officer, came to him and said, listen, everyone's getting ready, the troops are getting ready to be on the border, waiting for the green light at any moment. And he was told, listen, in the entire unit there are 3 soldiers that are married, and he said to each of them, I'm giving you the option of what to do. Do you want to go in with your friends, with everyone else, or do you want to stand back? And you can hear the struggle, meaning on one hand, there's the shlichus, there's the training that's been for the last year and a half to go ahead and do what needs to be done to get the job done. On the other hand, he's just married. It's just a couple of weeks away. What to do? And his commander told him that one of the other Chaylim that was married said yes, and one of the other Chaylim said no. What should you do? The soldier, Ben Yeshiva, Ben Torah, calls his Rabbanim, tries to take advice, and to ask, what should he do? It's not just the Chaylim, but it's everyone. It's everyone. Yesterday, this past Shabbos, almost the entire country was affected, is under fire. And it affects the entire day, not just a few times over, and depending where a person is, how many rockets or missiles fell. But the entire day, Kol Hayom Kulo, is affected by living constantly in the threat of the missiles and the rockets. A person has to consider and calculate everything that he does, how close he is. Is he make sure to be in the proximity of a shelter? Does he have where to run to? It means in the middle of a Shabbos Suda, running to a miklat, running to a shelter. It means the children crying, waking up in the middle of the night, not just from the sirens, but also from nightmares. In the daytime, children afraid to leave the house, afraid to go to shul, afraid to go visit their friends. Once upon a time they said, it was just the South. As if just 1 million civilians isn't enough a reason to justify being able to stand up and to protect people to live in a normal manner. But now, the rockets are everywhere. They're the entire country. It's the Merkaz, it's Gush Dan, it's Tel Aviv, it's Haifa, and it affects everything. The terror is attempting to paralyze an entire country. Talmud Torahs at this time of year are still usually learning and in session how to cancel learning, how to cancel their studies out of the danger. Different kaitanot and camps for children here that were canceled. Those teenagers out camping out in fields and in woods and forests and tiulim that were canceled. And it's not just that. It's the day-to-day, most mundane matters. The question of whether a person goes out to the makola to buy themselves milk now becomes a question of, well, is it safe? Could I go? What's the risk? How much time will it take me to get back? What happens if a rocket comes while I'm driving my car, while I'm walking around the corner? Will I be able to get back fast enough or not? Again, the most mundane matters, as simple as going into a shower for 3 minutes, isn't so pashut, because what happens in the shower if all of a sudden a siren goes off? There's a real attempt here to paralyze an entire country. I mentioned the question of the fresh chatan 2 weeks from his chuppah. I don't want to talk about lamaisa, but we do have makoros. The psukim are familiar to all of us from Parshat Shoftim. There the Torah tells us, Ki tetzela milchama loivecha, v'amar lehem shema Yisrael, and then dibru hashotrim al ha'am, mi ha'ish asher bana bayit chadash, v'lo choncho yelech, v'yashuv lebeito. U'mi ha'ish asher natak kerem v'lo chilalo, yelech, v'yashuv lebeito. U'mi ha'ish asher iras isha v'lo lekacha, yelech, v'yashuv lebeito. On the other hand, here we see that a chassan, iras isha, he should go home. And in Nakil Lebeito for 1 whole year, Shana Rishon is supposed to be home, Kavachom within the first month. On the other hand, the Mishnah and Sota, Daf Mem Dal Mubet says, B'med Dvar Mamurin, B'melchamat Rashut, Aval Melchamat Mitzvah, Hakol Yotzin, Afilu Chatan Mechedro, V'kala Mechupata. And so the Rambam paskins halacha l'maisa. In Hilchot Melachim, Perek Zayin, halacha dal, the Rambam writes, "V'med dvar mamurim shemachzirim anashim elu morchei melchama." When do we turn these different people back from the front lines from Melchemet Rashut? Aval b'Melchemet Mitzvah hakol yotzin v'afilu chatan mechedro v'kala mechupata. Now the question becomes: how do we define the mitzvah? How do we define Tzok Eitan that we're now in the middle of? The Rambam, the beginning of Perek Hey of Hilchot Melachim, defining Melchemet Mitzvah, the Rambam writes, "Ve'ezoi Melchemet Mitzvah, zu Melchemet Shivat Amamim, u Melchemet Amalek," and adds the Rambam basically Yerushalmi, "Ve'ezrat Yisrael miyad tsar sheba lehem," defending the Jewish people from a tsar, from an enemy that's coming and attacking and threatening them. It's about approximately 800 missiles and rockets that have fallen all around the country over the last 6 days. This is clearly a Melchemet Mitzvah. I'm not going to relate into the question of what the Chatan should do. There are many other factors as well. But the thing that's clear for us to realize is that we're now in a time of a Melchemet Mitzvah. And what's incumbent upon every Jew, no matter where he is in the world, to do is lizdahot, is to identify, to feel part of what's going on, to feel the Jewish people, to feel the threat, to feel the tsar, to be part of the nation in a time where the nation is under attack and is being threatened. The Rambam, in the very next halacha, talking about the Melchemet Mitzvah, he says the king, Eino tzarich l'tov b'rashut beitin, he doesn't need rashut, ela yotzei ma'atzmo, and then he writes, v'kofeh ha'am letzet. The king is allowed to force every single member of society, every citizen, to go ahead and to fight in battle. Which brings us to the next point. This is true for soldiers. What about someone that's not part of the army? What about for someone who realistically is never going to fight? In what way could he be a shutaf? Could he be a partner? Could he take part in this Melchemet Mitzvah? This brings us to Parshat HaShavua. In the Parsha, we learn about Melchemet Midian. Beginning of Sheni, Hashem says to Moshe, "Nikol nikmat b'nei Yisrael me'et Midyanim, achar te'asef al amecha." And Moshe goes ahead to gather up the troops, and there he says, "Elef l'mateh, l'chol matot Yisrael tishlechu letzava." Elef l'mateh. The question is, what does that mean? Elef l'mateh. One understanding is that every single shevet has to send 2,000 soldiers. Elef and another elef, 2,000. But then the question is, why not just write alpine? Why elef and another elef? Another explanation is each shevet has to send 1,000. Elef l'mateh is a poetic way of saying elef l'mateh, 1,000 for each shevet. But there's another interpretation, a fascinating interpretation that's found in the Medrash, both in the Tanchuma and in the Medrash Rabbah, that's very relevant to our topic right now. The Medrash writes, elef l'mateh. Each shevet has to send 1,000 soldiers to go and fight the battle. But in addition, there's another elef l'mateh. Each shevet additionally has to have 1,000 Jews sitting back that don't go to battle, that participate by sitting at home and davening. There's the ruchnis. There's the supporting the chayalim on the front lines by sitting back and davening. Elef l'mateh. Elef l'mateh. I once had a teacher that told us that there are those that say that in order to win wars, we need tilim, we need missiles. There are others that say in order to win a war, we need tehillim, we need to sit back and say tehillim. And the emes, we believe, is the combination of the two. We need both tehillim, missiles, an army to fight, and we need tehillim, we need the ruchnis. Elef l'mateh, elef l'mateh. And here is where each and every Jew, wherever he is in the world, has the opportunity and the responsibility to take part in this Milchemet Mitzvah. Here's where the first point has to be translated into the second point. It's not enough just to identify. It's not enough just to feel part of what's going on here in Eretz Yisrael, to feel part of the tsar, the oyev that's coming and threatening the Jewish people and shooting missiles and wreaking havoc in the lives of millions of citizens, the majority of the country. But we have to do as much as we can and anything that we can, and there's very, very much, in fact, that we could do. Start with to be makazik and limud, to strengthen our Talmud Torah, an extra parak, an extra chavrusa, an extra shir. Yes, also in the summer, also in camp. It's an Eit Milchama. There's a war going on, and we have to put in our efforts. You know, the chayalim are barely sleeping these days. They're definitely sleeping less. We also could sleep a little bit less and put in an extra little bit of time to be learning as well. In terms of tefillah, to be mechazik in tefillah, have more kavanah, to add a little bit, to add some tehillim. You know, here in Yeshiva, based on the instruction of the Rishon LeZion, of Yitzchak Yosef Shlita, the Rav Rashi, so we say Avinu Malkeinu every Shacharit and Mincha, but everyone in their own way, to be mechazik in tefillah. And thirdly, is to be mechazik in gemilos chasadim, be'am lechavero, in chesed, which is always important all year round. It's always important, specifically this time of year, as we approach Bein HaMitzarim, the 3 weeks, and the period of the Avelos of the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed of Sinat Chinam, to strengthen the Gemir Chasadim, Kal V'chomer, a year of now, like we are in right now, where we're in a time, an eight of Milchama. Everyone should take for themselves at least one thing to think, what am I going to do? What contribution am I going to make to Am Yisrael's war efforts now at the eighth Milchama? And B'ezrat Hashem, if we do our hishtalus and ruchnis, and the chayalim do their hishtalus and actually going ahead and fighting elef l'mateh and elef l'mateh with tremendous siyat d'shmaya, B'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will ensure that we'll be successful in defeating our enemies, in being mekadesh shem shemayim bolam. As Rav Kook writes, that at a time of wars are ma'orer the koach of Mashiach. Well, there's a war, there's an awakening of the koach of Mashiach should come b'mhera b'yameinu, and Be'ezrat Hashem, as we approach Tisha B'Av, this year we should be zochet in the nevuah of Zechariah, that Tisha B'Av should be a day of Chag with the building of the Beis HaMikdash, b'mhera b'yameinu, amen.